Hello, fellow plant people. Welcome back if you remember who I am and are returning to my channel. My name is Jen. I go by The Leafy Geek here and also on Instagram. And I'm hanging out with you right now from the comfort of my hammock. This is Editor Jen. The footage that you are about to see was filmed earlier today. However, it's going to have to be a voiceover video because there was a lot of background noise and I just wanted to show you the status of my garden at this point because it's really in its prime. It's looking the best it has so far, and I just wanted to make sure you guys got an opportunity to see it. And I know it's been a long time since I've been able to film a video and get that out there. So please enjoy, and let's just get into it. Welcome to my summer garden tour. As you can see, things are growing, and that's all I can ask. This has been a very dry summer here in Minnesota, so you can see my lawn has suffered for that, but I've been able to maintain some green practices and water retention for my garden, so it's looking pretty fabulous right now. As you can see, things in my flower bed are a little bit tangled, a little bit unruly, but I love it that way. This garden bed has filled out beautifully. I'll refer you back to my spring garden update when things had just pretty much gotten into the ground here and some things hadn't been planted quite yet. So I have these ornamental kales that kind of bookend the flower bed, but they are obscuring my rose bushes. So I'm thinking the kale will be coming out soon because I really want the roses to establish. But then I have this beautiful spread of bachelor's buttons in this corner, snapdragons, African daisies, and it's just an absolute delight. The color combinations turned out better than I thought they would, even than I'd imagined. And then, every once in a while I have these celosia kind of punctuating and providing different texture. Then I have a few drifts right up front of this sweet alyssum as a border, and purple basil. I have a few purple basil in here that I'm treating as a flowering plant. I'm not eating that basil. But I just love this drift right here as well. It's just wild, and the bee balm has finally bloomed in full force. And then I have my miniature snapdragons, these twinny apple blossom varieties that have just been performing like crazy since spring. I haven't found a real need to deadhead them, similar to these pansies that I'm just, well, that's a weed, doesn't belong there. But the pansies and the snapdragons, I haven't really had to deadhead that much. I don't know what it is, if it's just the climate, if it's the amount of water I've been able to give them, but they're looking really fresh and really, really well. They're still blooming, still creating new blooms, even now that we're into July. So I couldn't be more pleased. And then there are the zinnias. So I'm growing 3 different varieties of zinnias in this garden. The one you're looking at here is called Cinderella Peach, and I'm not quite sure if this is what it's supposed to look like. More on that later. But I also have this fantastic Queen Lime with Blush variety, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. Some more celosia. This celosia is either one of 2 varieties. It is a Texas plume sherbet or some other variety. Either way, it is, again, obscuring my rose bushes. So that's one lesson learned. I really think that I need to give adequate space to the roses for next year and not plant so close together. This is another really great combination, and it's with my second zinnia type, or I guess my third zinnia type that I'm growing. This is a variety called Oklahoma Salmon. It's just a beautiful, compact flower. It looks really nice. Everything's in pretty good health. I do need to deadhead the daisies, it looks like, but they have
been in flower. The daisies were the last to flower out of everything in this flower bed. And then on this side, I tried to kind of mirror the left-hand side with having a few drifts of the 20 apple blossoms, the pansies, which are looking fantastic all the way around. Some of these 20 apple blossoms are a little bit pinker, and I've been trying to figure out why that is. If they're older blooms, if they kind of age to pink, or what have you. But I love the variety. And again, here are those Cinderella peach zinnias that I think were supposed to be double blooms, but I think mine got root bound, and I think that's documented, where you don't want to let your zinnias get root bound because then they will not form flowers adequately. But this is literally the perfect zinnia right here. And I love the gradient. I love that lime to pink gradient on the queen lime with blush variety. It's just gorgeous. It might be my favorite flower in this flower bed, honestly. Beautiful. So yeah, it's a continuation here. So this is a common sight. I have a little resident bumblebee. I don't know if he's the only one or what, but I've named him Albus Bumbledore. I know there's a resident bumblebee that has made a burrow kind of up on my patio in one of the cracks. So I like to think that this is him. Just bumbling around on the bee balm all day, every day. So while I'd say that my garden as a whole this year wasn't a huge achievement because I grew it from seed, this flower bed is at the top of that achievement list, for sure. So this is my big bag bed, my raised bag garden bed. That's just to the right of my flower bed. And I had a spring crop in there with some Chinese cabbage and mizuna and the snow peas, but this is my summer version. As you can see, I've sown some dragon's tongue beans that are taking off, but I haven't had the heart to take out the snow peas yet because they are still producing. So they're kind of cramped in here, sharing space, but I do want as many snow peas as I can possibly get. And while this plant is still flowering and producing peas, I'm going to let it go. So they just have to deal. Then I have a variegated pepper. This is a sweet pepper, collage pepper plant. And it's producing. There's fruit on it already, so that's awesome. Eggplant is taking off. That is the Listata de Gandia. And then I rescued a couple of herbs from my ill-fated hanging herb garden that didn't work out. So that was perilla that you just saw. Here's another eggplant. Nothing on this one yet. But I also rescued some Thai basil from that herb garden, which is over here. And I realize this has flowered. I'm not particularly averse to eating basil once it's flowered. It doesn't bother me taste-wise necessarily. But this is another pepper plant. So a couple of pepper plants in here, a couple of eggplants that I had left over that I didn't want to just throw away, and then the beans and the herbs make up my summer raised grow bed here. So I'm pretty excited about this. You guys might remember what this corner looked like in my spring garden tour. Can you believe how much plant is over here? That tomato is super teeny tiny, but in any case, these are my Mosaic yard-long beans. They are taking over, which is awesome. Lots of flowers on there, starting to vine up into the fence, which was what I was hoping it would do. So hooray for beans. I'm gonna have a lot of beans. And then I do still have some strawberries in there somewhere. I might need to transplant those into the ground. Yeah, I think I have a couple of plants that aren't really getting enough light, although this one has a flower. So that's interesting, but might benefit it to move into some sunnier ground. So this is my orange peach tomato, and you guys, like I mentioned, might remember from my spring tour that this was just a tiny little plant, and it has since beefed up and it's flowering like crazy. I am going to fertilize my tomatoes. We're kind of hitting the midsummer point here in Minnesota, so I want to make sure that it has enough energy to really produce, which I'm so excited to try these. I've heard really good things about this tomato variety. And then over here are my Corbacchi sweet peppers. So yes, these are sweet peppers. They are not chili peppers, even though looks are deceiving here. So they should ripen up to a orangey reddish color. So I'm kind of letting them go. I haven't tried one yet, but there are quite a few fruits on this plant, and they're just a really unique, fun shape. So I'm excited to try these once they're ready. So even though the season isn't necessarily done yet, I do want to kind of preliminarily say that I think my grow bag experiment was a success so far. All of these plants that are sitting in grow bags are doing really, really well. And so this is the opposite corner of my yard. This is the southwest facing corner. And here are my gherkins, or my mouse melons. So these are vining like crazy. They've gotten really well established and they're starting to flower and fruit. As you can see, this little guy right here, I guess you're supposed to wait until the fruits are about an inch long to harvest. So I've seen quite a few on here, and meanwhile the vines look really healthy. No pest pressures right now, which is great. So yes, I am thoroughly excited by my grow bag experiment. I think I have 20 or 10-gallon grow bags in my yard, in addition to my big bag bed, which just generated so much more square footage for me. I was able to grow plants that I had started from seed in like February and March and didn't have the heart to throw away, but ended up being able to grow them outside of my main veggie plot, which the more I can grow, the better, in my opinion. And so, side note here, these Okinawa pink okra, it's okra version 2.0. The first crop of okra that I'd started met their maker in some cold spring weather. So it was kind of unusually or unseasonably cold. But those ones are looking good. And then finally, this is my banana house plant, or it had been a house plant for a long time since I'd gotten it, but then it got too big. So now it lives in the ground in my yard. I'm gonna try to overwinter this thing. I don't think it's the hardy banana, but we'll give it a try. And then over here, this is kind of the opposite side, just outside of my patio space. Those stairs lead up to the deck on the top level unit of my building, my duplex. So this is kind of an unsightly area. I have a couple of temporary compost bins in the rocks there. There's a wood pile. So I wanted to plant something that might grow up a little bit and possibly come back from season to season. So I planted some cleome, or spider flowers here. You can see this one's in bloom. And then I also direct sowed some cosmos, which I kind of need to redistribute a little bit. It didn't come up quite evenly enough, but this is the other cleome that I grew from seed. So I'd like to kind of just create a screen on this side. This faces kind of back into my neighbor's yard, and I don't know, it just needed something here. So experiments all around, but I think it's going to turn out pretty nice, especially for late summer with that cosmos. And then I just have a few miscellaneous haphazard pots of things. This is my cilantro that went to seed or went to flower, some parsley, some fennel, just kind of a hodgepodge. So this area is kind of another underutilized space in my yard. It's right up against the house. I've got a couple of grow bags here. I planted these pretty much the same. So each of them have a canna lily in them. I've also planted or underplanted the canna with these beautiful black king pansies, and then I threw a couple of extra snapdragons in there just to see what would happen. And I don't love the look. I probably, if I could go back, I wouldn't have done the snaps, but I guess I don't really mind. They're just kind of hanging out. I might try and move them or something, but I just love the delicate snapdragon flowers, so I don't mind seeing them everywhere in every corner of the space. But these pansies are doing really well still. Definitely kind of overgrowing, which is interesting, and the cannas are loving life. The tallest one is up here in kind of the shadiest part of this section of my yard, which is funny that it's just continuously growing. So I'm pretty pleased. No flowers yet. I think those canna flowers are like a peachy pink. And then over by my patio here, I have some nasturtium that's finally kind of vining up this trellis here. And then I tried to create kind of a wall because this gets some really good morning and afternoon light. So I have some of my alpine strawberries here. Even if they don't fruit, they're still pretty. I like the foliage, I like the green. Then I have this grow bag that has more cannas. These are going to be yellow cannas, underplanted with some alyssum and some strawberries. I've got my Swiss chard in the pot. And then I have this glorious, or it's going to be glorious, grow bag of nasturtiums with these beautiful orange flowers. I've seen these buds everywhere on this thing, so I'm anticipating in a couple of days I'm going to have some really pretty visual interest over here with the nasturtiums. Oh, there's one. Cool. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what that looks like. And then I planted, this was kind of just a random split-second decision. I planted some bachelor's buttons along this fence. This is a really steep hill right off of my patio. So I kind of wanted to block this off for Hound Dog so she wouldn't re-injure her leg post-surgery. But I also wanted to just add some visual interest over here so it wasn't just chain link and grass. So I planted some bachelor buttons, and I've alternated a couple varieties down the slope here. And everything's looking pretty good. The ones up at the top have bloomed already. These ones look like they're about to. So I might have some pretty nice visual interest on this side of my garden as well. All in all, I'm really happy with the setup. I don't know that there's much I would change on my patio here. Of course, no patio is complete without a hammock. So welcome to my new favorite thing. And I don't know how in the month of July I still have lettuce that is not bitter yet, but it's true. I have it. And then I have recently sowed some microgreens as well as some watercress and a new variety of lettuce just to see what happens midsummer. And then my tamarillo plants are all still just kind of hanging out. Probably won't fruit unless I get them into a bigger space, but I think it's a little bit late in the season for them. So this has been part 1 of a 2-part status update for my garden that I'm going to be showing you. Next time, we'll be able to visit my primary vegetable garden plot, which you can see just past the flower bed there. Yep, right there. So I will take you on a detailed tour and update of how things are going in that particular corner of my garden. But for now, I just want to thank you for coming with me, for enjoying this beautiful view. And as always, until next time, enjoy your plants and your gardens.